Good morning, Scoop Nation. My name is Ryan McClincy, and you're listening to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, October 13th. Today, I'll be joined by Mr. Take It to the Bank himself, Bill Greene. But before we get into everything, just be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a 5-star review. But with that, let's get on to the show. Welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right, man. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you. It's good to have you. I think. How was your trip? I know you've been gone for a few days and probably much needed relaxation, much at least well deserved. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I try to take a little jaunt. Carol and I go up to Boston. Got some good people that I know coaching at Boston College and good people I know coaching for the Patriots. You kind of have to pick the weekend when both of them are at home.
Hmm.
And, so this last weekend worked out good. We saw Boston College play Clemson and the Patriots play the Lions, did some sightseeing in Boston, and everything went well other than my eye infection. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, that didn't stop us. We did everything we wanted to do. And so now, back home and back at it.
yeah. No, well, we are definitely happy to have you back. I'll say one thing. I was not expecting that Detroit Lions game to end the way that it did. Lost a little bit of money on that, but we won't get into all of that. So you know, with that, we'll move on to the bye week and we'll scrape off our wounds and we'll get better. But speaking of bye weeks, I don't know about everybody else. I pretty much dread the bye week every year, just as a fan. Not having Ohio State football to watch on the weekends is one of the worst things I think for the majority of the year, let alone the bye week. So definitely something that not incredibly looking forward to, but I know it's something that's much needed for the team. Get healthy, get everybody back in the games when it comes back to it. Sorry, my dogs are barking in the background. It's storming here, so they're losing it. um, but I guess what is your kind of bye week prep like? What do you kind of do during the bye weeks, or what do you look forward to most as you come into the bye weeks?
Yeah, the way it kind of fell this year, at this time of the year, I think it's a good time. What I want to do is for this Friday, I normally do a preview of
Yep.
the upcoming game. Predict a score, what I think people should look for. Well, obviously we don't have that this week, but I think what I'm going to do is do just sort of a positional breakdown of each position group and where I think they're at, and how I think each position group translates to Ohio State winning the national title. I don't think anyone, at this point, I don't think anybody's going to go out and buy a sweatshirt for, Big Ten championship. We
Mm,
beat Iowa or something like that. This is national championship or bust at Ohio State. I mean, you can enjoy seasons where, like a couple of years ago, Ohio State got to the championship game. It was a COVID year. It was nasty. That was a pretty darn good year. The year
yeah.
before had the horrible loss to Clemson, but that was still a darn good year for Ohio State. Last year, I think, was a huge disappointment. So that's what I'm going to do for Friday is have a breakdown of each position group and where I think that position group is able or not to be national championship quality.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely. I won't say national championship or bust. I think the expectations are there, and I think this is a really winnable year in college football,
Yes,
especially
yes.
with Alabama kind of looking the way that they've looked recently, with Georgia looking the way that they've looked, and with big games still on their schedule as well that could throw a wrench into their own plans. I think Ohio State has not only the schedule with the Big Ten being a little bit down this year, but also I think the talent wise. I mean, Ohio State has looked like the most talented team in my opinion a little bit biased, obviously, but in my opinion, in the country. And I definitely think that that's the goal. That's the goal every year. I think this is one of the more realistic shots that an Ohio State team has had, and I definitely think there's some gaps that can be addressed as we go, and I'm sure as you kind of go through that and release your breakdown, it'll be very much inclusive of some of that and. A lot of detail around kind of exactly how that's going to pan out for the rest of the year. So be sure if you are on the Buckeye Scoop website. If you're a member, be sure to check that out on the Ask the Insiders board once it is uploaded on Friday. And if you're not, go ahead and make sure that you go ahead and become a member so that you can join into that community and ask your own questions as Bill is one to be willing to answer pretty much always. So be on the lookout for that. But in other kind of reporting functions here this week in regards to recruiting, I know you had put up a fantastic article earlier this week with a really in-depth breakdown of some of the kind of key players still on Ohio State's recruiting board, namely Keon Keeley and Damon Wilson. I know there was a couple big visits for them this weekend. What are you hearing? What can we kind of look forward to as those two get closer to a decision?
Yeah, with Keon Keeley, he had decommitted from Notre Dame back, before the season started. There were rumors that he was silently committed to Alabama. Um, I'm not sure if that's true or not. It seems to fall in line. I wouldn't argue that, and
Mm.
I have no proof either way on that. But I've had a couple different people I trust tell me that's the case. He did come to Ohio State for the Notre Dame game. Um, and an official visit is just so much fun. There's a reason these guys usually take all five of them.
Yeah,
They're a blast. And Ohio State does them as well as anyone in America. So that visit was, I didn't, I was told that, he was giving Ohio State an honest shot. And when you see him come back a couple weeks later for the Wisconsin game, and that visit's on his dime. Ohio State's providing nothing, no transportation, no lodging, no meals, so that means business.
yeah,
So I thought that was a great sign for Ohio State. My probably ultimate hope from that visit was that he would come out of that second visit to Ohio State and go ahead and cancel on Bama and say, hey, no reason for me to go back there, no reason for me to see Alabama. Obviously, that did not happen. We saw that happen a couple of years ago with JT Tuimoloau. But that didn't happen here. And he did take that official visit to Bama. And, right now, I don't think a decision's been made. And I don't think Ohio State thinks that they're out of it because they, went right down there to see him,
hmm
this week. So I don't think they feel it's a lost cause. If I had to make a pick today, and I don't, but if I did, I think Alabama probably has that thing back under control. But we'll see. We'll
yeah,
see. Ohio State does a great job. Larry Johnson has a lot to sell. Um, with what he's done in the past, developing guys for the NFL. So
hmm
I don't think Ohio State's out of it. They wouldn't waste their time going back down there, going to his school to watch him practice if they thought they were out of it. So,
yeah.
it won't surprise me if Ohio State gets him. But if I had to make a pick, I think Bama probably got that one right back under control again, and we'll see. Until he makes it public,
Yeah.
we're just not going to know. So, but I think Ohio State's in there with a fighting chance.
Yeah, and let me ask you, I guess, do you think it's I guess do you see him as having a faster path to the field at Alabama than he would at Ohio State, just with the defensive line room that Ohio State has? Last year's class was a pretty solid class, top to bottom. Not a ton of defensive linemen in this year's cycle. So, do you? I guess does that something that plays probably strongly? Do you see him as having a quicker path to playing at Alabama than he would had he if he chooses to commit to Ohio State?
No, I don't think so. You when you go to Alabama, man, there's no quick
Yeah,
path to the field for the most part. And the same with Ohio State. I mean, those programs are so loaded. So it's not like he was choosing to go to Purdue or
Hmm.
Indiana, where he would be the most talented guy the first day he shows up. So no, I don't think that really factors into this at all. You go to Alabama, man, you better be prepared to compete.
Yeah.
Same with Ohio State. So no, I don't think there's any advantage there at all, um, because of the way both teams are so stacked talent wise.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And the other name, obviously, that was heavily watched this weekend was Damon Wilson. Took his official visit to Georgia. I think that's has been reported by yourself and many others as a Georgia kind of Ohio State battle, pretty heavily, and there's been a lot of discussion about Georgia rather, kind of making a strong push here of late. So, any updates on Damon Wilson and how that visit went, and kind of what you're hearing in regards to where he would ultimately commit?
Yeah, I think all along I've been writing that I think Ohio State is the leader, with Georgia closing fast on the
Hmm.
outside there, and they got their official visit. I'm sure they do them as well as anybody else in America does. So I'm sure it went really well. I think it gave him a lot to think about. As with Keon Keeley, I don't have to make a pick right now. I'm trying to read the tea leaves here and trying to figure out what you can. If I had to make a pick, um, I would choose Bama for Keeley, but if I had to make a pick right now on Damon Wilson, I would still choose Ohio State. I think the fit was there. His dad and Larry Johnson seemed to hit it off really well. So, but no official pick for me on either kid right now. Leaning Bama for Keeley, but leaning OSU for Damon Wilson. And we'll see. We'll see how things go.
Yeah.
I also think both kids could be committed, well, in the next few weeks, maybe by the end of October, early November. That won't surprise me. So we
Hmm.
may hear about those two, fairly quickly. And again, Ohio State took the trip down to Florida this week, visit with both kids. If they felt they were dead out of either one of those, there's no way they waste those trips. So time is too valuable to waste. So Ohio State visiting both kids tells you that they think they're in both of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I knew, this is at least for the coaching staff, a large focus with the recruiting trail this week, and getting in front of those guys, especially after a visit, can be really important. And once the dust settles, where are those relationships kind of forged the strongest? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself? Uh, you know, going home, if you will. So I definitely, I wouldn't want it in anybody else's hands, save for maybe Brian Hartline,
Yeah,
to close on a
yeah.
recruit in that sense. So I have full confidence that those guys are not giving up, regardless of any early decisions, and the fight will continue long after, up until pen goes to paper, if you will. And there's still obviously a lot of recruits out there. I know there's a lot of confidence still in Mateo, the
Yes.
other 5-star edge that Ohio State has really high on their board. Let's go kind of doom and gloom. Worst case scenario, Ohio State misses on Keon Keeley and Damon Wilson. Say we land Mateo. There's not a lot, of defensive linemen in this class. I think that would give us three. If we landed Mateo alongside, oh, who?
Will Smith and
Yes,
Jason Moore.
Will Smith and Jason Moore. So I guess where do we go from there? Where does this staff go from there? And are there any kind of names that have risen up the boards pretty quickly to kind of be those plan Bs should Keon Keeley and Damon Wilson go elsewhere?
Yeah, what I think they do, and typically in a case like that, should you lose both, Keeley and Wilson, you fight to the death for Mateo. He's not going to decide until later.
Yeah.
You keep that fight going. Typically, what you would do is you would look in state then and take let's go back through all the guys that we had earlier evaluated. Let's see if we missed something. Is somebody dramatically better this year than they were last year? when you look at Ohio, Brendan Vernon at Mentor was so highly rated, and I think he's a heck of a player. He chose Notre Dame, and I don't think there's any wiggle room there for him. I think that's where he's going to go. So
Yeah.
that's probably not going to happen. Then the most interesting one to me is Arvell Reese. And, we just don't know where his body's going to take him. He's listed as a linebacker. I think those linebacker days are long gone. Um, I think Arvell's going to end up 250, 260,
Mm.
maybe more. I mean, so Arvell could be a Frank Clark type for Ohio State. That kind of you might even be able to play him inside a little bit and outside. So I just do not think he's a linebacker. I think Will Smith probably ends up as an inside guy. Arvell Reese is interesting to me, especially the way Jim Knowles has constructed this defense, where you've got that Jack Sawyer role here,
Yeah.
where you kind of stand up. So Arville's a developmental guy. He's not Mateo. He's not Damon Wilson. He's not Keon Keeley, but he's got a chance to be a pretty darn good football player. So when you look in state, he would probably be the one. He's already committed. He kind of flashes to me. So as a guy that, could fill that role that Jack Sawyer's playing right now. Going down through my Ohio list, I just don't see anybody else that they possibly would move on now,
Mm.
that and thinking that, hey, maybe we misevaluated this guy over the summer, maybe he's a lot better. I don't see a guy like that. So, and then you're going to go back to your national lists. I don't think they're ready to do that yet, though.
Yeah.
So I think they're in the fight for the three that they want. And there's plenty of time, once assuming you do strike out with Mateo, Keon, well, Mateo's not going to go till late. So assuming you strike out with Damon Wilson and Keon Keeley here in the next month, that gives you plenty of time, to try to flip somebody
Mhm.
who might already be committed to another school or get in the fight for some uncommitted, edge guys. So, but I don't think Ohio State's ready to even look at that right now. I mean,
Yeah.
they're squarely in the mix right now, and they're fighting hard for these guys. So I don't think there's time right now to look at, plan B lists, as you called them. I don't think there's time for that right now. Every minute you've got for D lineman has to go into these three guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say, I think you have more confidence, with Damon Wilson than I do, so, I will ride with your confidence all day over my own.
Hey, we're just trying to read the tea leaves right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go on, if you look at the crystal ball, there's not. I don't think
Mhm.
last time I checked, I don't think there was one crystal ball prediction for Damon Wilson.
Yeah, I haven't seen one myself,
I
so
don't think I haven't checked in the past couple of days, but there wasn't one. So, nobody's got a good handle on this. This
yeah.
kid's done a good job of keeping things close to the vest. So, who knows who's right now? I mean, nobody. I've not made an official pick at this point. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of throwing out there. If you put a gun to my head, I had to make one. I would put in for Ohio State, but that definitely would be in pencil right now. And same with
Yeah.
Keon Keeley. Keon Keeley to Alabama, that's in pencil, not in pen. So we got to see. There's still some time here.
Yeah. Well, after the Brandon Innes, saga and your confidence around him coming to Ohio State ultimately, I have zero reason to doubt, your confidence in that. So I will gladly take that all day long, alongside Mateo. Hopefully, we'll see. But regardless, I agree. I think this staff is not one to give up. They know who they are. They know what they have to offer. They know what Ohio State has to offer, and it's right up there with what Alabama can offer, with what Georgia can offer, with what any school throughout the United States has to offer these kids. And I'm fully confident in Ryan Day and Larry Johnson to be able to continue to fight those fights and get the guys that they want and the guys that ultimately are going to make that room better for years to come as well. So with that, that's most of the recruiting. Obviously, there's a lot more from the article that you had posted earlier this week. So, like I mentioned, at the top of the episode, be sure to go to buckeyescoop.com, go to the Ask the Insiders board, and look for that article. There's a ton of information about some of the other highly rated recruits that Ohio State has been looking at, and some updates on what's going on with them, and what to expect going forward. Bill, as always, thank you for joining, and thanks for your insight here. Wish you speedy recovery, more speedy recovery, I guess, than it has been, and hopefully we'll have you back on video here sooner rather than later.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And to you, Scoop Nation, thank you as always for listening and or watching. For more great Ohio State content, be sure to download, like, and subscribe to the Morning Scoop podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts, and to the Buckeye Scoop YouTube channel for even more content you won't find anywhere else. Of course, all of this and so much more is always available at buckeyescoop.com, including that Ask the Insiders board. You can join the incredible community of Buckeye fans on the most premier site for all of your Ohio State needs. As always, I am your host, Brian McQuincy, and until tomorrow,